Life Changer is a nine-chapter novel, and the whole story centers on the university experience of the main character, Salma. The novel starts with Umi, who has four children, of which only one, Omar, is a boy. She was standing by the door of her children's room listening to the gist her 5-year-old Bint was giving to her elder sisters Jamila and Tima about her class teacher who asked the class to say good morning in French, which she was the only one who could answer it, and after she answered it, the teacher applauded very good. Then she asked the teacher how very good is said in French, and the teacher became helpless because he doesn't know it. He went and invited the French mistress of the senior class, and she was able to tell the class how good morning is said in French. Then the class teacher followed the French mistress out and didn't come back, and the class surrounded Bint and cheered her for being able to ask a teacher a question that he couldn't answer. As Bint was telling this story excitedly, their mother, Umi, who has been standing at the door listening, barged in and sat between them. Umi always barged into her children's room in order to make sure they always keep their room neat. She also told Bint that she was proud of her, and also told her to give the teacher Malam Salihu a break because he was only trying to practice his little knowledge of French. As they are discussing, her first son Omar comes in and announces that he has passed JAMB exam and has been given admission to study law in the university. They rejoiced over it. He even told his sisters Tima and Jamila to call him their learned brother, which they laughed over. Their mom promised to celebrate it when their dad returns from work. As the room got hotter, they all left to the courtyard for some fresh air. Since there hasn't been power supply for 2 days and the fan that is in the room is also bad. But before they left to the courtyard, Omar warned that no one should tell their father about his admission before him, so he could get their father to buy him the smartphone that he promised him. As they got to the courtyard, Ben said she wanted to drink Zobo, and Omar asked Tima to bring for everybody, but Tima declined because she doesn't believe that Omar will pay her, until her mother asked her to go and get for everybody. Then she got Zobo for everybody. Then Bint asked their mom, Umi, to tell them a story. Umi wanted a stable story to tell them, considering the fact that her son just gained admission into a university. She decided to ask Omar to tell them how he gained the admission without anyone's help. Omar boasted that after he passed SSCE, which was by no means a small feat, he purchased the JAMB form online and prayed to God that he passed. When the results were out, his friends who had smartphones checked their results from the comfort of their rooms, and he had to wait for 2 days before he could go to a cyber cafe to check his. He uses it as an opportunity to buttress the need to buy him a smartphone, and his mom said they will see to it when their father returns from work. She goes on to ask if he knows the implication of the admission in his life. He said it implies that he had arrived and now he is a member of the intelligentsia. The mom was amused of his naivety and told him that the admission letter he has is a life changer. When Omar asked what she means by admission letter being a life changer, Tima said it changes your life, and Umi said it also changes the person. And when Omar asked how admission letter changes a person's life, Umi said she can only tell them how her own admission letter changed her life and can't tell them categorically how admission letter changes one's life. Then she was asked to tell them how her own admission letter changed her life. Chapter 2. Umi started by telling her children about her university experience. She started by talking about how the whole of her village celebrated her admission and marriage, which her husband insisted that they did before she could proceed with school registration. She mentions to them that in university, students do not wear uniform, and as a result, it's sometimes difficult to differentiate between a lecturer and a student. but people in the Faculty of Law wear uniform, which sort of makes them different. It makes them stand out from other students. She also told them that in the university, many girls dress indecently. And she narrated the experience she had during her faculty registration. When she went for faculty registration, a lot of students were queued at the faculty registration office, waiting for the lecturer in charge to commence the registration. Then a student, Salma, who also came for the registration not more than 15 minutes ago and was last on the queue, though she would not stay there, began talking about how immoral and indecent university lecturers are. And one of the people in the queue engaged her in a conversation which was more like an interrogation. And she said that lecturers would ask a girl for a date and boys for money to render any help to them. She even went to the extent of calling the lecturer, who she believed was in the office doing nothing, a monkey that wants to frustrate people, only for everyone to later discover that the young man who had engaged Salma in the discussion was the lecturer in charge of the registration, but was only waiting for the cleaner who was busy cleaning the office. So after Umi was done with her faculty registration, she proceeded to the HOD's office for matriculation number, and the secretary directed her to the HOD's office. As she entered the HOD's office, she noticed that the man had some tribal marks on his face, which betrays his tribe. After Umi greeted and told him why she was there, he said, "Sit down, my dear." And because he used the word dear, Umi became very unsettled. She became very uncomfortable considering the things Salma said about university lecturers. The HOD came and sat beside her and complimented her dress. This heightens the oppressive feeling Umi was already having, and she told the HOD that she would like to have her matric number quickly because she was pressed. To her surprise, the HOD told her to use his toilet, but after hesitating for a while, she went in there, though she was not pressed, stayed there for a while and flushed the toilet. When she came out, she was given the matriculation number. The HOD sent his secretary after her to tell her to proceed to the 100-level coordinator for further registration. When she came back home, she told her husband about the experience, only to discover that the HOD is the husband's friend and the person that helped him with Umi's admission. Before she could tell her husband her experience with the HOD, he already told her not to trust people by their looks due to what happened with one of their neighbors who was considered to be quiet and harmless. Chapter 3. She told her husband to go and apologize to the HOD, Dr. Sam John, though she managed to convince herself later that nothing happened. Then Oma asked about the quiet one. He wanted to know what happened with the quiet one. Then she told them what her husband, their father, told her about the quiet one. The quiet one, whose name is Tole, T-A-L-L-E, Tale. Tole was born to parents who were bona fide citizens of Lafayette, and Lafayette, being a small village, is controlled by a ruler called Hakimi, H-A-K-I-M-I, who upheld the tradition of not hosting a stranger in the community to avoid hosting criminals and fugitives of justice. And the quiet one, Tali, who lost his parents during childhood, grew up to become a driver in a local government office, and he lived a lonely life. He always bought a particular quantity of groceries from the store, to the extent that the store owners know when, what, and quantity of groceries Tole would buy. So one day, the store owner reported him to the Hakimi for buying too much groceries, which was too much for only him to consume. When he was invited by the Hakimi, he said he was buying them to store up in case of any day that he doesn't have money. Then the Hakimi asked him how he got the money to buy that much, and he couldn't defend himself. He couldn't answer until the police came there and arrested him for being involved in kidnapping. The kidnapped person, who was kept at Tole's house, was freed. Tole and his accomplice Zaki went to jail. After a long time, it was rumored that Tolly was seen at the border where goods are smuggled, but the rumor fizzled out very quickly as many people were not interested in knowing about him. Umi used the story to admonish Oma, who is going into the university, on judging people by their looks. Chapter 4. In this chapter, Umi tells us about Salma, the young lady at the faculty registration office. Salma is a very beautiful lady who is about 20 years old. She dresses in tight-fitted clothes and jean trousers, which Umi says is short of being indecent. Salma walks into the level coordinator's office, Dr. Sabo, for registration. When he asked her what she wanted, Salma confidently told him that she was there for level registration. Dr. Dabo was shocked that a first-year student should have such confidence. He checked her files and signed on the appropriate places. When she was about to leave, Dr. Dabo called her back and asked her to sit. He asked Salma if he could know her intimately, and this annoyed Salma because in the school, Dr. Dabo has the reputation of being a disciplined man, being an upright man who does not meddle into immoral acts with students. Salma wondered why a man like him who has nothing to offer would be asking her out. Then she asked him what he meant by knowing her intimately. Then Dr. Dabo, who unusually could not articulate his thoughts and speech at that moment, said he wanted them to be friends. Then Salma stood up and said that was not what her mother sent her to the university to do. She reprimanded him and left the office. Dr. Dabo regretted why he made such a mistake, even after working so hard to earn such reputation of an upright man in the university. He asked God for forgiveness and hoped Salma does not tell anybody. But Salma forgot about the incidents as soon as she left the office. When Salma went for hostel registration, she was allotted 3 other roommates, which she did not like because she was not the one that chose them, but the computer did. The computer matched them together because each of them chose the same room during the registration. Salma is from the north. Her other roommates, Tomiwa, is from the west, Ada is from Benue, and Ngozi is from the east. Tomiwa is very intelligent and neat, and also a fashionista with the ambition of becoming a singer. Hence, she is always abreast with the current happenings in the entertainment world. Ada is a reserved person, and she loves to share her food. Her habit of sharing made the roommates to start cooking together. They cooked in turns, and Salma asked Ada to always show the ingredients she wants to cook with to them in order to avoid seeing rats in their food, because rat is a delicacy where Ada comes from. One day, as Salma was coming back to the hostel by 8 o'clock in the evening, she received a ride from 2 men, Habib and Lebaran, in a Benz, and they stopped her in front of her hostel, Queen Amina Hall. Chapter 5. By 8 o'clock in the evening the next day, Tomiwa's phone rang, and she put it on loudspeaker. It was Habib and Lebaran, the 2 men that gave Salma a ride the other day. Salma had given them Tomiwa's number and told them that her name was Tomiwa. So the roommates encouraged Tomiwa to go see them. When she met with them, Habib knew that she wasn't the one they picked the other day, but later on got to understand that Salma had given them Tomiwa's number and told them that her name was Tomiwa. Habib bought beverages for her and her roommates, also gave her money to share with her roommates. He also bought them steaks, that is suya. During her discussion with Habib, who she understood was a politician, she made him understand that she hates politicians because they are the problems of the country, with a lot of promises that they make and never fulfill. In the hostel, Tomiwa shared the money as instructed by the giver, 10,000 for each person and 20,000 for herself. She also shared the provisions. They switched off the light and ate the steaks, which they couldn't finish that night. Salma got jealous since she was supposed to be the one enjoying what Tomiwa is enjoying, and later on opted to date the driver. The four roommates took their studies seriously as they did not allow their relationship with men to affect their studies. Chapter 6. It was the day for their last paper, the last paper of their final year exam. The course was called Moral and Ethics Philosophy, which was a general paper and also famed to be the easiest because the topics comprised the lessons received from parents, imams, and pastors. The lecturers keep recycling the questions every year. Salma and her friends tackled the course head on since it was going to be their last paper, their last exam in the university. Though Salma never attended lectures for the course, but she studied for the exam. Unfortunately, in the exam hall, she discovered that none of the topics that she studied came out, so she could not write anything, and the female invigilator, who was jealous of her gorgeous dressing to the exam hall, saw that she was not writing. That's the invigilator later on went outside, and Salma used it as an opportunity to pester her neighbor, Kolowale, to help her. He gave her a cheat note, which Salma was furiously copying from until she was caught by the invigilator and she was given the Emal form to fill by the Emal officer. Emal stands for Examination Malpractice, EMAL, Examination Malpractice. So the Emal officer brought the form which Salma was made to fill and she was taken to the HOD's office where she was questioned. Chapter 7. Day before the day she was to sit before the Examination Malpractice Ethics Committee for interrogation, she made efforts to find out the people that make up the panel, that's the committee, and bribe them. Unfortunately, she was introduced to a wrong person who duped her of 150,000, which was part of the money she received from Habib, who slept with her in return for the favor. So she gave the money to a wrong person, that is popularly called Dr. Kabir, who was not a member of the committee but just a lab attendant and a gambler. On the day she faced the panel, she discovered that her game was up and there was nothing she could do anymore. She just said everything that happened boldly and even implicated Kolawole, who helped her with the cheat note. After the interrogation, she swore that Mr. Kabir would pay for duping her. So she told this to Labaran, who in turn told Habib, and they employed Zaki to go and deal with Dr. Kabir. Zaki followed him to the gambling place. That night was the first time Dr. Kabir ever won anything since he started gambling in that place. He won 300,000 and decided that he would not continue. He stood up and left. The shop owner sent his thug, Gumuzu. Gumuzu is the name of the shop owner's thug, to go after him and snatch the money from him. The thug hit Dr. Kabir and he fell. Then came in Zaki. Zaki also fought Dr. Kabir, including the thug that was sent to grab the money from Dr. Kabir. So Zaki fought the two of them. During the fight, Gumuzu thought to himself that Katagi, his boss, does not trust him for him to send another thug and promised to deal with him. After Gumuzu escaped Zaki, Zaki beat up Gabi and told him it was from Salma, the lady he duped. He took the money from him and gave it to Labaran, who in turn gave Zaki 50,000 and kept the rest. When Omi was asked by Oma of what happened to Habib, she said Salma did not tell her, and Oma said there is no justice in the earth. Umi told him that there is certainly justice in the hereafter, which Oma said he wasn't eager to go. Bint followed suit. The talk about the hereafter reminded Umi about the incidents of Salma's father's death. 8 days after the funeral of Salma's father, she came back to school looking haggard. The roommates who tried to console her started arguing about Northern funeral practice and the Eastern funeral practice. The Northern funeral practice of burying a dead person very quickly, which Tomiwa defended by saying that it was the best practice and it helps to ease the pain on the relatives and to help the person meet with his creator very quickly. Ngozi said the argument said her people delay in burying their dead so that the relatives of the person who are not around could come and bid the person farewell, and in order to make sure they were not burying someone who is still alive. They argued until they realized how insensitive they have been to Salma, who just lost his father. Omar remarks that he liked the way the girls relate with each other. Then Tima, her younger sister, asked him why it wouldn't be interesting since the story was about girls. Omar said someone was going to lose her teeth, and Tima said she will make sure he does not receive the smartphone their father promised him by being the first person to tell their father about his admission and about the phone which she said Omar wanted to use to pursue girls in the campus. Umi told them that technology has its own advantages and disadvantages. She narrates the story of the sole experience Salma's boyfriend Salim had with smartphone. Chapter 9. This is the last chapter in this book. Umi narrates the two sole experiences Salma's boyfriend Salim had with smartphone. Salim had bought a smartphone and downloaded so many social media apps. He began chatting with a certain beautiful girl who looked like an Indian lady, as remarked by his friend Lawal. On the day he was to meet with the lady, he asked Lawal, his friend, to accompany him, but he refused. Then he went alone. When he came back, he told Lawal that the girl he went to meet is a personification of ugliness. The picture the girl used in the DP wasn't the girl's real picture. Lawal warned him about taking such risks because he can be kidnapped, he can be assaulted, or in some cases the lady would make him travel a long distance and only for the lady to tell him that she is not around. And in some cases the lady might even switch off her phone after he had traveled a long distance to come and see her. When he noticed that Salim was lost in thought and he inquired to know, Salim told him about his previous encounter where he had to meet with a girl and the girl only turned out to be a bet used by some guys to get their victims. On that day, she met with the lady and they were standing beside the car, beside Salim's car, only for the thugs, the criminals, to come and try snatching Salim's car but could not move it because they did not understand how to use SUV cars. They did not understand how SUV cars work. Then he was asked to drive it to their office. He drove on a very high speed and was only slowed down when they got to a muddy place. When he had come out to a safe place, he looked behind his seat. He looked at the back seat and found out that nobody was there. All of them had disappeared. Lawal called him a wonderful guy for engaging another Facebook friend in a chat after such an experience. He promised that it won't happen again. Shortly after, Salim got engaged to Salma. Tima turned to Omar and asked him if he had seen the consequences of having a smartphone. Umi said she doesn't have anything against Omar having a smartphone, but warned him to be careful of the negative effects. Then Omar requested once again that Tima should be asked not to tell their father about his admission before.